at 4:03 p.m. Ms. Seabolt, would you like to see if we have any public comment, please?
Thank you. No.
Okay. Thank you. Under 3-305, the general provisions of the annotated code of Maryland allows public bodies to meet in closed session by conducting a recorded vote on closing the session for certain stipulated reasons. Those reasons for closing this meeting are as follows. Review of minutes. Under number 3, I would like to add our first item is personnel update. We have field trips, professional leave, appointments, legal topics, performance evaluation, negotiation, and administrative function. Do I have a motion to go into executive at 4:04?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. We are in executive session now. Meeting this evening will reopen at 5:57. Our first item on the agenda is our consent agenda, which includes agenda, minutes from the August 8, 2017 board meeting, and staffing appointments. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Hunter, can I abstain from consent agenda?
Motion passed. I'd like to have everyone stand up, please, for a moment of silence. At this time, we will have our student board member Cheyenne lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is closed session summary. Ms. Baker?
Thank you. The Board of Education met in an executive session on Tuesday, August 8, 2017 at Central Office in the boardroom at 4:04 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items: board meeting minutes, personnel topics, field trip appointments and tenure, a legal topic, and administrative function topics. The board recessed the executive session at 5:52 p.m. to go into the public session. The board reconvened at 7:56 p.m. to discuss administrative function topics and a personnel topic. Nathan Sorber made a motion to adjourn the executive session, and Tom Woods seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved adjourning the executive session at 9:50 p.m. Board members present included Ms. Monica Rinker, President, Mr. Matthew Paw, Vice President, board members Mrs. Charlotte Seabold, Dr. Nathan Sorber, and Mr. Tom Woods. Mrs. Barbara Baker, Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, Mrs. Karen DeVore, Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction Administration, and Dr. Jane Wildison, Director of Human Resources, were present for part of the meeting. Mrs. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, was present for part of the meeting for the purpose of taking minutes.
Our next item is announcements.
Thank you. All right, so we had a successful opening of school, and we have several upcoming events. September 21st, staff development. Students will be dismissed 3 hours early. On September 22nd, board retreat orientation, team building and training at Garrett College at the GIAC building in room 102 from 9 to 3 p.m. Also that evening, August 22nd, is the Swan Meadow Harvest Sale at 5 o'clock p.m. September 26th, there'll be a special board meeting to discuss the FY17 financial statements and the single audit results at 6:00 p.m. On September 28th, that will be progress reports for the first grading period. October 4th through 6th is the MABE annual conference. October 12th is the staff development, students dismissed 3 hours early. October 13th, schools closed for autumn glory. October 17th, that's a change in date, October Board of Education meeting here in the boardroom. And October 27th will be the Teacher of the Year Gala at Martin's West in Baltimore. And of course, if you don't already know, we have a finalist for our Teacher of the Year this year. So that will be an exciting gala that evening.
Our next item is our policies and procedures. The first one is IHBHA, Public Charter Schools Policy and Procedure. It's been revised.
I have that.
Ms. DeVore? Yes.
So basically, what we had before was a lot in the policy and nothing in the procedure. So I didn't really change any of the content of the policy, but I moved part of the policy statement. I added a policy statement you can see in red from Roman numeral 3 all the way to the rest of the document. I took out and put into the procedures and made some very minor changes within that, and those are marked in red. Well, everything's red that I brought over from the procedures. It's pretty lengthy, but it's the only other major change I made is if you look at the very end at Roman numeral 14, I moved that section into L in the same procedure. It just fit better there.
And you've bracketed what is coming out and then it's going over to procedure.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, you may.
Okay, I serve on the policy committee, and I did bring this up at the committee meeting, and I brought it up before, that I feel that we are in charge of policy, and what's in the policy is mainly what we're supposed to do, and procedure is how it is supposed to be done. I think when we strip a policy like this of all the information, plus, if I remember right, the state put this in, and we had to send these in to get an okay on what our policy looked like for charter schools. So I encourage you that when, the things that need to be changed in here as far as the policy numbers or whatever that might have changed, I would agree to that. But I looked at other policies. Now, Allegheny County has a habit of also taking and just doing a couple of things in policy and then having the bulk of everything in procedure, which is, we actually, I've found in past, sometimes have no control over that part of it. So I looked at Howard and I looked at Caroline, and they both have a lot in this policy, especially because of the fact that so much of this is directed toward what the board is going to do. So I encourage you to make the changes that need to be changed as far as where we have incorrect or outdated information in the policy. But I would like to see us keep the bulk of this policy as policy.
Did the administration have a specific reason for moving it into procedures, or?
Because it is procedure. I mean,
I'm just-
if you read it, it is, about the submission guidelines, about what schools can apply, compliance with laws, that's all, reporting program, that's all, basically
But we're
procedure.
legally responsible for that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even in that statement about who can apply is a
Right.
policy within
Right,
within
but I
the
will say
guidance
that
of-
we still, they ask for this every year. The charter school department at MSDE asks for our charter policy annually. It wasn't just a one-time submission. We have to certify every year that our policy is in existence and that it.
Right, but I did know, and it was approved, and it has been approved over the years, the way it is written. So I guess I'm asking why change it? When other counties are carrying the bulk of that in their policy also for some reason.
Some are and some aren't. Some are. This is directly aligned with a couple of other.
Yeah, Allegheny.
But the one comment I would have on that is I think most of this under the policy guidelines is coming from the statute, which is the 9-104 of the education article, so it's state law anyway.
Right,
So
Right.
we have to follow it.
right, but if somebody picked it up, shouldn't they get as much information if they're just gonna look at policy?
Well, I hope they would click on the one up here that
I would
has
hope.
the annotated code
Yes,
too.
I would hope.
Right, where we
Yes.
reference it.
You would hope, but,
Well,
thank you.
That's
Thank you. It's first read this evening, so it would be coming back next month. And we can certainly.
Any further questions or discussions on application for public charter school? Okay, again, that was our first reading. Our next item is JCB admission to school out of attendance area policy procedure, and it's a review this evening.
Correct. Just for your information, I have included the current policy and the current procedure. One of the board members asked that it come under review, so it will be coming back to the internal committee. Just wanted to open it up this evening to see if there were any specific questions that we had in public session that I can answer before it goes to the internal review.
Yeah, I think my comments are that we continue to get this sense that that we have an issue with this policy, and it's unclear if the issue is we need to tighten policy and really consider some of the exceptions of what are the exceptions. The daycare exception, for example, being that we have other daycare options, is tight. So I guess all I'm saying is when it returns to the policy group, I think it would be great to explore both what are possible policy issues that are causing what we think is some advantage being taken of the system and people going out of area that we probably wouldn't intend them to based on this policy. But then second, also procedures as far as I know we have an annual review of that process, but I don't know if we say as much in the procedures about the degree of enforcement and what our follow-up should be to check that people are in compliance. We are in a period of time where some schools are overcrowded. We're trying to make tough decisions and maintain good class sizes, and when we look at the numbers, we have lots of out of areas. So that's why I think some of us had an interest in looking at this. But I hope we look at both sides in that policy, in the internal group, and really with a goal of saying what is the essence of this policy. There are some real reasons we would want to consider out of area transfers. And let's identify what those are, and let's close loopholes where it seems that people in the community are taking advantage of a kind of free choice across borders.
Absolutely understood, yes. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Does the committee look at the total number of out-of-area requests we have each year?
We do. We haven't
Forget
taken
to
it
give me
back
the
to internal yet. This was just to gain some information. I have some of that information, but it hasn't come back to internal yet.
Okay.
Thanks.
Our next item is our program update. We have the Hickory Environmental Education Center overview. Mr. Shank,
Thanks for having me, guys.
thank you for coming.
Ms. Baker asked me to come and talk a little bit about Hickory and some of the things that are going on there. Mrs. Siebold is the representative from the board that comes to the advisory meeting. Just want to let you know some of the things that are going on down at Hickory. I'll start by talking about the environmental literacy plan, which of course is the plan that we use to make sure all students have that credit or that taken care of when they graduate. And we have now realigned everything with Next Gen, so all of our lessons now match Next Gen, which the schools are now transitioning to at the elementary level and are there in middle school and high school. So we're ready to meet those needs, but still also fulfill what's in the environmental literacy plan. Last year we had almost 7,000 student visits, which was my goal was to have at least 6,500, so we had almost 7,000. So really proud of how many kids actually use the facility. And we had a 94% usage rate, meaning 94% of the days that students were in regular classrooms in Garrett County, there were students at Hickory. And we certainly want to have as many kids there as we can. Obviously the first week of school is tough to get the paperwork for trips there. And at the end of the school year, it's tough to have students there when they're taking finals, but 94% was a good usage rate for us. That was our goal, was actually 94%. We also reestablished our Green Center status, so Hickory is Garrett County's Green Center, which allows us to help all the other schools become green schools. And as of now, we only have 2 schools in Garrett County that are not green schools. And one of our goals is to make sure that all schools are green schools. We had a plan in place at Southern High School, but unfortunately the teacher that was partnering with us ended up leaving that school, so we're kind of back to square one on that. But Southern High School and Southern Middle School are the 2 that are not green schools yet. And our goal is to make sure that they eventually become green schools. We helped review, fund, and submit the recertifications for Northern Middle School and also Crowlin. And so I'm very hopeful that there will not be a problem with those submissions. Summer Camp 2017, we had over 100 fifth graders for the 3rd straight year. So we're really proud of our camp and how that has grown throughout the years. And that is our helping students transition to 6th grade. That's when we get all the different feeder schools together and they get to meet each other and hopefully help them when they go to 6th grade. As far as some educational extensions that we were able to do in the past year, I certainly won't read all of them, but some of them that we were able to do is 5 of the 8 elementary schools, 5th grade, stayed overnight at least one night to sort of get ready for camp. We helped partner with Northern Middle School on their service learning with 7th grade, their field day, and also their picnic. We had Christmas Around the World at Hickory for Route 40 and Accident. We hosted Accident's pre-K graduation. We were part of the Junior Legos program, which had a camp at Hickory. We hosted National History Day when the weather forced them to not be able to go to Frostburg, which was kind of interesting when we found out on Wednesday that we needed to have it on Friday. But we were able to make it work, so it all worked out. We hosted Grantsville's after-school program, Accent's after-school program. We hosted Envirothon for both high schools. We had Northern High School band camp. We gave out over 200 trees for Arbor Day. We also gave both of our scholarships this year, one to a Northern High student and one to a Southern High student. And we hosted a class of Frostburg State University students to talk about how we develop our lessons and how we meet the needs of environmental literacy plan. As far as outside groups, we had over 30 outside groups actually paid to come to Hickory. One of the groups that has come now for several years is Union, and they are very desperate they don't have a facility like Hickory. So we get lots of phone calls from schools saying, is there any way we can use that facility? And of course, since they're an outside group, they have to pay to come, but that's worked out very well in the past. The Western Maryland Fur Trappers have stayed for a number of years in a row. We hosted forestry camp the last week of July. A private school, Gunston School from downstate, paid to come up and stay for some days, and we're hoping that we can use them to get some of our students down to do some things at Chesapeake Bay in the future. We hosted Camp Glow, which is mentally challenged adults from the Baltimore area. They were just here about 3-4 weeks ago. We had both Boy and Girl Scouts in the area, and also Berkeley Springs football was one of the camps that was held at Hickory. So we're certainly trying to get as many outside groups as we can to use the facility because we make some money and the board makes some money. Completed projects, and a big shout out to maintenance and Bill Swift of all the help that his crew gives to us. We're able to put new stalls in the bathrooms in the nature hall. We replaced the hot water heater in the long dorm with now on-demand heat. We finished all the painting on the outside of the building. So I've been there, this is my 5th year. And one of the goals was to paint the entire outside. And so we finished that this year. So the outside has been totally painted. We put up new signs that need replaced as far as where you're going when you get to the facility. Sharon Hoover, the secretary/assistant, filled out our wellness grant, and we received enough money to update all the safety equipment at the swimming pool. Hopefully you've got a chance to see some of the murals. That was another big goal. We wanted to get those murals done and do that on the inside. We were able to do that. And then we also replaced about a third of the planetarium seats that were worn out. And that's kind of good and bad. That was from 2003 when the new seats were put in there, but I think it speaks to how many kids are going in and out of there. Trust me, I'm not letting them jump up and down. Some new additions. We have added some animals in the past year. We have a new squirrel, mounted squirrel, a bear, 2 new fish, a heron, and porcupine that we've added, and we'll continue to try to add animals that are native to Garrett County. We completed the bunk bed project in the girls' dorm, which was Northern's carpentry class building the bunk beds that meet all codes. And so now all bunk beds in the long dorm have a safe ladder and a safe railing. And we haven't quite completed the boys' dorms yet. We'll probably complete that this spring when they finish the beds there. And we added 3 new shows to the shows that we have in the planetarium. One on weather, one called Journey to Mars, and one called Out There. The weather show we were able to purchase, and the other 2 were actually free. So we're very glad to have them, which brings us to 25 shows that we can use in the planetarium on the new system. Some future plans that we're looking at is we do not have any security cameras at Hickory. Now, thank goodness we've never really had to use anything because no one has done anything to the facility. But Mr. Swift wants to look into having some security cameras there. We're looking at replacing the windows in the girls' dorm, which would be a good upgrade for that facility. And we need to put new bathroom stalls in the girls' dorm eventually. We also are going to paint the bathrooms in the nature hall over the Christmas break. The custodian and I will do that. And we need to work on a physical science lesson so that Hickory matches the new physical science class for 9th graders at the high school. So we're in the process of working on that. So by the spring semester, we should have a lesson that matches that for when they get there. So, I know that's a lot of information in a short period of time, but it's really a great facility. I'm not just saying that because I work there, but we're very lucky to have it. We hear a lot of things from other counties. You're so lucky to have this. And as much as we can, we try to help other schools get there, but we can't always help all of them because we're certainly there for Garrett County students. And one of the things we want to do is make sure we use it as much as we can without having things torn up or destroyed. So we've had a lot of things there like reunions, all kinds of little get-togethers like that I certainly haven't read, but we have used it an awful lot in the past year, and we'll continue to do that. So, anyone have any questions or comments about Hickory or anything they want to ask me about?
It's a word of mouth in terms of outside usage of it.
So far it has been. We really haven't went out to advertise. Now we certainly have our link off of the Garrett County webpage, and a lot of people look there. But a lot of these groups come back year after year, and when they leave, they book the following year. So it's kind of hard unless a group leaves for us to get another group in.
Do we have like a security deposit that we use if the Springs football team comes and all of a sudden they leave and it's not the same?
So far, we have not done that. Now, we certainly do the paperwork with them, but that's a group that's kind of the last 3 years they've come, and they've been very trustworthy, and no, we haven't done that. Usually the other groups, we have to have some connection with them, or we're probably not going to do it.
Right.
We know somebody in the group where it was someone that was from Garrett County or some kind of connection that we feel pretty trusting that they're going to be there.
Right.
And then usually Debbie, Sharon, or myself, or Damon, the custodian, we work out some way that we're letting them in, and of course we're locking up so we get a chance to see it. We try not to give out the key. We want to let them in, and we want to lock it up so that we see it. So far, have not had any issues with that, and we haven't had any issues with people tearing up the facility either. As far as, the road through there is actually open. I mean, you can drive through there. There aren't any gates. And one evening I stayed there to build a fence. I was working on a fence on the back part of the girls' dorm, and I was shocked by how many cars went through there. But in my 5 years there, we have not had any vandalism, damage, or anything like that. Our hope is that we have our kids invested in planting the trees and doing everything that we do there, and then they think to themselves, well, I don't want to go back and mess that up because I have such good memories there. One car went through like 6 times, and finally I said, that's enough of this. I'm going to see who this is. So I walked down the road, and when it came to the 7th time, it was a northern parent, and his daughter's working on trying to get her license. Okay, you know. Yeah, that was a good place to drive. It's slow, and there's one that's in there. So.
People causing problems usually don't parallel park.
Yeah.
No, I just want to, just thank you for, hosting so many students' favorite day of the year. I have one of them in my house. We were talking about the planetarium earlier and how, we're just in the mindset now of looking at all our kind of strategic strengths in the county and what are those things that we can leverage. And I think maybe you don't remember when I came out and hung out at Hickory and we were talking, and when I see the planetarium and I'm like, my mind goes to our robotics team and how that's become so integrated. And I talked to you about Space Camp. I know we don't have Space Camp; it just exists in my mind. But any way that we can talk about the way to take that very unique thing in our county and our educational portfolio, and think not just the ways to integrate it into the curriculum, which I know we're doing and doing a fabulous job, but even outside things or camps or programs that use that, because it's an awesome space, and the more we can do, the better.
Absolutely.
And I know at one time we were having trouble getting the 5th graders there because of the fact of staying overnight. So I applaud you guys for having them come one night during the year, and then they know how much fun it is, and I think your amount of kids there have gone up considerably, and I think you probably can't take all of them. I think from the southern end you had more than you can.
The one year, not this year, but the year last year, we had to cap it and turn a couple kids away.
Right.
Now we gave the opportunity to come to the Northern Week, and some of them did.
Good.
But yeah, about 75 is about the max we can do for the summer camp. So.
Yeah, well, it's a great week, and the fact that they can see ahead, because kids that age have fears, and so that helps out a lot. So I appreciate that.
So do their parents.
Well, and the reason why it's 5 of the 8 elementaries, and I'm not trying to throw those schools under the bus, but you're asking a lot for those teachers to come and stay overnight too. And some of the teachers will say, you know what, this year I'm going to do it. And we'll set it up, and about a month and a half before they'll call and say, not this year, not this crew. No. And so we try again the following year, but 5 out of 8 is still not too bad for that. We actually have Broadford coming up on the 28th and 29th, and that's 105 kids, I think. So we'll be maxed out. We have 112 mattresses, so we'll be maxed out for that night. But
Excellent.
we'll make it work.
I just want to add that you are certainly in your element, Hickory. No, I mean that with all sincerity. And it was already a wonderful facility, but you have done a phenomenal job there. And I want to make sure to publicly thank you and tell you how much I appreciate it on behalf of the school system.
Well, I appreciate that. And it certainly is, we have there's only 4 of us there, but we have a nice staff, great staff works together, Forrest custodian, Mrs. Brenneman on science side, Sharon, working with Allison, transportation, so certainly all of us, it's a team effort, that's for sure.
Thank you.
I back up everything everybody said, and I want to say thank you too. It is a wonderful program, and the kids thoroughly love it. Like Nathan said, they're excited when they come, and the paintings just add. I love all the.
Yeah,
and you got to look close to see Hickory spelled in the clouds, and
That was
all
quite
that.
a nice addition, for sure.
Thank you for coming in and sharing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item under new business is our special education handbook.
And before he walks out, I want to say I'm also that mom of a kid that loves Hickory. And we're also hosting
You might want to bring it up.
our Special Education Citizen Advisory Committee meeting in March at Hickory because we're hoping to get families more involved in our CCAC meetings and entice them with a night at Hickory. So Mr. Shank is opening Hickory for us, and we really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've had several revisions to the special education handbook, and I believe that you have a copy of all 86 pages of it.
Yes.
And then a handout where I just kind of quickly went through and reviewed them. All of the changes are in red, and they go along with a lot of the revisions that I've talked to you about that came out in legislation in the past session. So what I want to do is just go through each one, and then if you have any questions or any concerns about it, we can discuss those. The first page on page 6 is the first change, and really what we are doing is we are using more of the online forms that are generated by the State Department. One, for auditing purposes, because now we have to scan and email them to the state during our yearly audits. Now, if they're online, they can simply log in from MSDE and see our forms. So that's a time saver for us. And it doesn't cost us anything for printing anymore because we were having to print. Also on page 6, we reduced the number in our restructure of special education. We went from 4 diagnostic prescriptive teachers, and now we are down to 3. Page 10. You've heard a lot about response to intervention, and so that language has been added when you are looking at what types of data we are looking for when determining a student eligible for special education services. Also on page 10, our old handbook had all of the disability codes listed, 01 through 15. However, they were not in order, and I just felt like they needed to be in order. So they are now in order in a little neater fashion. On page 15, under specific learning disability, you've heard the talk about dyslexia and how that is now part of a disability category under specific learning disability, but it's also dyscalculia and dysgraphia. So that was included as a part of identifying a student eligible for special ed under specific learning disability.
What do those words mean?
Well, dyslexia is they're really a reading disability, a math disability, and a written disability. So we've always identified them as math calculation, math problem solving. This is just a different terminology. And usually it comes with a more structured program of intervention. So that's page 15. In 16, we are, for the documents, required documentation for specific learning disability, we are requiring response to intervention. We want to see that things have been tried in the school level through response to intervention prior to just identifying a child as having a disability. Obviously, that goes along with all of the federal regulations. Page 19, I also like to link things because this is obviously available on our website, so families, other people do look at it. So there was, I put some live links on there. So specific learning disability, there was a big technical assistant release from the State Department. It's now linked to our handbook. Also, the language has changed. Several years ago, it was we must implement scientific-based interventions. Now they are evidence-based interventions. So that is the terminology that we revised it to. And then also, again, the dyslexia, dysgraphia, and on page 20, you'll see dyscalculia. And the change to evidence-based intervention. Am I going too quickly? Page 21 is the same thing, revised to evidence-based intervention. Page 27 is, again, about the meeting notice. So we are going to, that's another form that we are using. Again, it's so auditing purposes, they can quickly look at it from Baltimore. And then also it'll save us a substantial amount of money actually on printing. Our forms are very expensive to print. when we print triplicate. 32. On page 32, we are now required, because of House Bill 1061, we are required to document on the IEP the need for emergency and evacuation plans. So not only will they be in our power school system, but they are also required on the IEP effective July 1. Page 45. Page 45 is a live link to the procedural safeguards documents. This is a document that we are required to give out to every family at IEP meetings in their native language. So we, of course, see Spanish and English in Garrett County, but the State Department has, I believe, like 30 different languages if we would need to do that. But we created a live link for that. And then also we created a live link to the Students' Educational Planning Guide because there are so many different requirements now based on the year they've entered school. So given the HSA testing and the PARCC testing, a parent can just quickly click on that link. On page 46, it was just an update to the parent surrogate procedure that I presented to you several months ago. So we just changed that. On page 48, again, it's the form. This one is notice and consent for assessment, and it's just using the online form. Page 49 through 50 is another requirement out of legislation, Senate Bill 710 and House Bill 174. We are now required, we were only required to receive parent consent one time, and that's at the initial IEP meeting to initiate special ed services. Now there are 3 times that we must receive parent consent. So on 49, I outlined that. That's if we want to enroll a child in an alternative education program. We identify a child for alternative education assessments. So the first bullet is if we are identifying that a child is going to work on a certificate of completion versus a diploma track. The second bullet is if they would be taking the alternative assessment. So they wouldn't be taking PARCC or MESA. And then the last one, excuse me, is inclusion of the restraint and seclusion. So if we were to put restraint and seclusion on an IEP, we would require parent consent. Then it goes into how we get that permission, where we must send it home 5 business days after. They have 15 days to respond. If they refuse, what happens? And then of course, if a parent refuses, we feel that to get FAPE, we have to initiate that. We would obviously have to go through the due process. I know I've talked to you before about we take pride in building relationships with our families. We would hope we wouldn't get to a situation where a parent wouldn't be a part of that team discussion and that decision. But there is the new Senate bill and House bill in our handbook. On page 69.
I'm sorry, so, and they can ask for revocation on all 3 now?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so
And
it's
that
not
does
just
not
one
mean that the
revocation.
rest of the IEP cannot be implemented. We will
Okay.
not implement that.
So they can just like say, I no longer want the restraints to be used and everything else is
Correct.
still.
And then we either file due process and go through that, or we say, okay.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, so restraint and seclusion is on IEPs of students in non-public settings, but not in our public school settings.
Oh, okay.
But the discussions of moving a child from a diploma track to a certificate pathway is a challenging conversation. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
On page 69, this is another a change from legislation. This would be Senate Bill 651, House Bill 425. You've also heard about it, the suspension where you can, public suspension and expulsion is the bill, but basically no suspension of pre-K, K, 1st and 2nd grade. obviously unless there is that imminent threat of harm, so, and possession of a firearm. So that is the new language of Senate Bill 651 and House Bill 425.
On that page, the last sentence there looks like it's incomplete.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you.
I think it just looks like it. It's a long document, so I'm sure.
Yes, it does make you go a little cross-eyed. Okay, page 77, again, is the parental consent, and that is just on, this particular part of the document is in regards to physical restraint and seclusion. So I added that parental consent must be obtained to have that performed. And then on page 80, again, is added permission from the parent if we were going to use restraint or seclusion. And then added that if a parent does not provide writing, then we may not implement it. So I know there was a lot of revisions in there in that document, but of course I wanted to make sure that I went through that with you. Do you have any questions for me?
Sounds like a lot of them come from the House bill and Senate bill, correct?
Yes.
Changes.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously we knew the dyslexia one was coming eventually, so. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, a lot of
Thank you
hard
for the
work.
handbook also. Our next item is continuing business, update on the RISE plan.
Well, I just have a very brief, of course, no PowerPoint this evening, to update the board. I have my two committee chairpersons here that I'll turn it over to them to let you know how many meetings that we've had. Work continues on the plan. We submitted on behalf of the school system. I submitted a letter to the commissioners letting them know that work will be continuing. But like I said before, that we want to put a good plan together. I know we've included some student groups. I know we have some other stakeholders. So I'll start with you, Mrs. DeVore. Do you have an update on the instructional services?
It's been, I guess, 3 times since our last board meeting, and we met once here at the board. Then we decided we wanted. Cheyenne just was such a valuable member. She offered a lot, and I think it was you who made the suggestion that we include some of your other student council counterparts. So we made the decision to have the next meeting at Southern High School, which we did, and heard from those students. At that first meeting, following the last board meeting, Cheyenne was new, Dr. Sorber was new, Stephanie Waslowski was new. She has had some experience with student councils in the past, so we quickly put her in charge of rallying up the students, and she made the connection with Northern High. Then we had our next meeting at Northern High, so we did get a lot of good input from the students.
Would you like to add anything, Cheyenne?
I would just like to say thank you to the subcommittee for allowing me to work with you guys and for being willing to listen to the student voice, because I know the student council members who are able to take part in this discussion were very, very grateful to be included in this plan. Thank you.
Well, their input was really valuable to us. Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Mr. Waslowski?
We've had a couple meetings. A lot of us gathering some data points and determining which way we're going to go. We also have a meeting set up with the school construction from the state at the end of the month to come on up and go over our buildings, facilities, and look at some different things there. But we're continuing to work. We meet tomorrow and hopefully really make some more steps.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the conversations, I mean, as you know, that Matt and I were appointed to serve the board, or represent the board, and on the 2 committees, and not to get into, the specifics of those conversations, and I don't want to speak for Matt, I'll let Matt talk too, but I think one thing that became clear to us is that perhaps the board needs to do a little better job conveying its expectations about the overall process, or all the things that we would like to see, as well as the things that we value. I think there's a sense, we talk about some of the things that we value or some of the things we want in the plan, and I'll let Matt talk, but I think we're thinking that maybe us being more formal in crafting a document of things that we would like to see, and I don't think any of this necessarily negates any some of the work that's been done, of course, can be incorporated in this, but I'll let Matt talk too. But things like some SWOT analysis work on the front end that we want to make sure that we see as well. I think we want to again make sure that the people working on the various kind of ideas and plans kind of get what is critically important to us as a board, because we don't want this just to be an exercise in futility where we get to the end and we're far apart.
Right.
We don't want that.
Neither do we.
Right. And so I'm not saying we're far apart, but I'm saying, like, unless we articulate what our values and clear expectations are. So I don't know the best way to do that. Matt and I talked about maybe it would be in our best interest to create a committee of the whole of the board, a steering committee around strategic planning, just for us to create some sort of steering document. I'm not making that proposal now, I'm just kind of spitballing what we're saying, but I think maybe it's something we want to consider. Matt?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think we heard from our committee too, was kind of the overarching values and vision of the board, and I think that would help with direction as far as they continue their work, and we continue the work on the committee. So yeah, I think if the board could get together in a public meeting and just state some of our values and some of the process that we want to see, I think that would help to guide their work a little bit.
I'd just like to say I tremendously appreciate that. It is a lot of work, just what's been done so far. Our overarching goal was to provide options to you as a board, but would certainly, we have a feeling for some core values, but would certainly welcome a more formalized meeting. We do have a work session planned. Maybe we could back that up, I guess would be the word, to hear from the full board, certainly.
Yeah, and I think our desire is this is a big opportunity for us with this plan, and I think that we want to do the whole thing right and incorporate from the board's perspective and the administration's perspective, and look at the whole ideas from the full perspective, and all be on the same page, and I think that would help us too.
Yeah, and I guess if it's, we want to be on the front end saying, even on expectations around process of transparency and open forums, I think, I'm just speaking for myself, I think this community does not want to go through another exercise where we have more things formalized at the end and then have the forums. I think we're very interested in building.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not saying you said that.
I think I said that in the first
right.
meeting.
But
that's exactly what we would like to do. Yes.
So, I think the board needs to take a degree of ownership over those expectations about our expectations for those forums, our expectations for various parts of the process, and asserting our values. So that's...
Yeah, because we want to get the community on board with the plan as well. Instead of telling them, we want it to be ownership from everyone within the community.
And hope that in the open forums that the communities understand that brainstorming and idea generation is just that. And I tried to articulate that last month as well, that when we start talking about options, they are options, and that nothing has been decided. at this point at all. I mean, the options are just that.
So might understand that our subcommittees will be tabled until we get through that process, which is going to be very, very valuable to us.
Well, if it's the pleasure of the board to set up a work session to do that, then I can work with Mrs. Brewer to get some dates out, and then of course we would publicly announce the work session, and then that would guide the subcommittee work. Yes, Charlotte, yes.
We're gonna keep working, because we really have a lot of data.
Yeah, I think the data side.
We just gotta keep working.
Yeah, I think as far as getting the data together, that part.
Yeah, we're gonna continue.
Well, I think that's going to be needed to present the options.
Because that will look at the financial.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's really what we're looking at, is costs and all this.
So I think that side will be vital to.
Yeah, I think,
analysis.
Yeah, I think, so I prefer to continue.
I can't see my subcommittee going forward without that information and this information.
Right, because a lot of what is instructionally will be based on.
Exactly. Because we're just, yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll work to get that scheduled. Good for you.
I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
I have two eloquent speakers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is under board business. We have our student board member report. Cheyenne.
So our school year is getting off to a wonderful start. All of the councils are beginning to plan their events for the year. Southern High School has had 2 formal meetings so far to plan out the chain of events that we want to see throughout the year, and our first immediate goal is to be planning fundraising events for hurricane relief. And Northern High School's first formal meeting will be held tomorrow, and I am currently in contact with their president, so I will be able to bring you all a report from their meeting come next month. And I'm excited to see what both councils have in store for the rest of the year. I am going to be meeting with Mrs. Wazalowski and Miss Rowan, I believe on Thursday, to discuss plans for GCASC, so we can plan out our first meeting of the year, and I will let you all know when we do decide on a date. On August 10th, I had the opportunity to attend the student board member orientation meeting in Annapolis for the 2nd year in a row. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to network and exchange ideas with students from across the state. And even going back for the 2nd year, the information presented was engaging and insightful, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to go back. Also this month, I was able to work with the Educational Services Subcommittee, and I organized around 20 or so student council members to come and speak at the subcommittee meeting we held at the high school. And I'm just, again, I want to express my gratitude to Ms. DeVore and the rest of the subcommittee for just hearing the student voice and listening to what the students are really passionate about. So, thank you.
Were there notes taken or something that you could, so we could know what was said? I mean, I think it's important that the conversation is larger than just
Our subcommittee.
Yeah.
Things that are valued, yes.
Okay. I can work on that. It was more of each student signed up to speak about one particular topic, and there was a kind of a group discussion that occurred, but I can work on sort of putting together what the students had prepared and what they said, if that is something you're interested in.
if you're able to do it, I think that would be very
That would be
helpful to
wonderful.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you
I
for
think
bringing.
Mrs. Wazowski took notes at the Northern meeting, didn't she?
Yes.
So there was one at Northern and one at Southern also?
So, as chair, you know, if you would share that with Mrs. DeVore, and then you can compile both schools.
And I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing information from Northern and Southern. And keep us up to date with the fundraising events will be for the hurricane relief.
I will, thank you.
You're welcome. Our next item under board business is the MAID committee assignments. Charlotte, you were on one before, have you been in the past?
I'm on the legal services.
Right, okay, legislative.
Yeah, still on that.
Yes, okay.
Did not get to go to the meeting yesterday. Did talk with the folks at MABE, and they said they were going to be doing something on student data privacy. So they're going to send me any information they had on it. I did call Mrs. Baker, and she mentioned it to Jeff. He's already been working a lot on that. But anything that comes to us on that, I'm going to forward on to Jeff. And other than that, I did send the minutes from their last meeting to all the board members. Hopefully you folks got it. And it did, pretty much tell you what they had done at the last meeting, and I will do that in the future also. So these are evidently the committees that for the coming year that are not.
So we need what, one for budget, one for legislative?
Those are the two that they want someone from every board.
You're on the budget now, aren't you?
I can do that if no one else does. It's only one meeting a year.
That would be good.
So we put, anybody else? Matt said he would do the budget. Somebody else?
If we think about it, get back to you.
Sure. We'll do that.
These have to be in by September 22nd.
What's that?
These have to be in by September 22nd for the legislative.
You just send a reminder, Monica. Control one of us.
That's the other meeting.
Lots of days. Yes, true. Okay. The next item is our board member retreat scheduled for September 22nd, 2017. And we got our information today on that, our agenda. Would you like to add anything?
I said it in the announcements, the location and the date, 2 different presenters, and I think it's going to be a very good work day.
Do we have Brandon speaking for something?
This was tentative. We were particularly from about the 10:45 to 3 o'clock. We will work with you, Brandon, to add and see how much time you needed, and then we'll get with Emily, the presenter from MABE.
And
Do you know
I'm happy not presenting. Also, I'm just wondering, in particular, if you all want me in attendance. I've blocked the day.
In attendance. I would recommend your attendance,
I would too.
absolutely. I think it, like I said, I think it's going to be a very good work day, so it's up to the board, but I would certainly make that recommendation.
And I would willingly present on anything, but I'll also be happy to listen for the day.
I'll be attending that day also since I'm new to this process.
Okay. Brandon, attendance then? Yes?
I'm good.
Fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Monica.
Yes, Charlotte.
In the past, we've had board comments. Can I make some board comments?
Sure.
We don't have it on here. Couple of things. Opening day was very nice. It was nice that we had so many people there, and I thought it went very well. A good start to the new year.
Thank you.
Visited Crullen's Barbecue and Olympics, and that was excellent. And a lot of community showed up, and I hope the sales went good.
It was great.
Good. Yeah, it was. Thank you for doing that. Was a wonderful activity. Also, the handicapped access at Northern High School bleachers has been completed. Did go out and observe that. One day I was in an accident, and I think it's very nice, and glad we were able to get that done. And then we did receive an invite to the homegrown lunch, September 26th. Hadn't heard anything. We got it from a lady downstate.
Yes. It said Kendall Drive, which is past me. Crellin Elementary. Yes.
I looked at address up and guess what it is? Crellin Elementary, so I get to go back. I doubt if we have barbecue, but anyway.
Not homegrown, I don't think.
But whatever will be fine. So I don't know if everybody had that on their calendar about the homegrown day. That was about all I had.
Under board comments also, I would like to say the agricultural trailer is coming to Garrett County Schools. It'll be here to elementary schools from September 25th to October 6th. And that's through Farm Bureau, a different sponsor they've had. So.
And they pay for that, right?
Yes.
Will it go to all the elementaries?
Yes, it does.
Okay. That's very nice.
Is there any other things that any board members would like to share? Okay. We are actually 4 minutes ahead of schedule, but Cheyenne, would you like to see if we have any public comment, please?
What did you say before that, Monica? We were ahead of schedule?
4 minutes. 4 minutes. Yes.
Very.
Okay, thank you. We have no public comment this evening. Our next item is informational items. Board members have all been handed the most recent the student handbook that the parents, the children are supposed to bring home to their parents. We have our activities calendar. It's important for the principal secretaries of school to send it in, and then Karen gets it all to us, the different events at the school, so we'd like to attend as many things as possible. We also have a handout, our handbook for extracurricular activities, and I believe there was maybe just one change to that. I believe. Is that something minor? I think.
Mr. Edwards stated that the only changes were the MPSAA/MSDE updated suggested arms or concussions, sudden cardiac arrest.
Yes, there's been no changes to any other language. Thank you, Karen. And then our other informational piece was our lovely school calendar that the students brought home with a bunch of important dates in them.
And lovely artwork.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice.
It's hard for him to choose the artwork that's in there.
We sometimes ask, he takes pictures, but we also ask for input from our A&S group and try and get a nice mixture of submissions for the calendar. But Mr. Morris isn't here this evening, but definitely need to publicly thank him because it is a nice calendar and he works very hard on it.
At the time, we will recess for approximately 10 minutes and then we will go back in to finish an executive. Okay. Thank you all for coming this evening.